The LSA is nearby too. So good morning, everybody. And
good morning.
There was a question a couple of weeks ago from a dear friend here about justice. So I put this together on justice, and it was a learning experience for me. And I thought I'd share it with everybody. And so the dictionary defines it as quality of being just, righteousness, equitableness, or moral rightness. The moral principle determining just conduct, the administering of deserved punishment or reward. Sounds good. Now, I want you to guess who, thank you.
The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice.
Perfect. So, this was the definition according to the dictionary, and let's guess whose quote this is. It's a philosopher from 2,500 years ago, roughly, over 2,000 years.
2,500 years ago?
Yes, roughly. A Greek philosopher said this. At his best, man is the noblest of all animals. Separated from law and justice, he is the worst.
Suffering?
Close. The reason why I want you to see this is because the same philosopher that said this, which sounds very Bahai-like, also said this, Aristotle. Aristotle believed rights existed only between free people, not slaves. That was common. And the law should take account in the first instance of relations of inequality in which individuals are treated in proportion to their worth, and only secondarily of relations of equality. So free people enjoyed more rights than non-free, and so you can see even a
that
philosopher.
It's very heavy, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is extremely heavy.
Absolutely. So this is why we need spiritual, not just philosophical or ethical. We need the spiritual nourishment from God. So in the book of Exodus, Old Testament, I'm sure you know this, anyone who strikes a person with a fatal blow is to be put to death. However, if it is not done intentionally, but God lets it happen, they are to flee to a place I will designate.
Where would that be?
Anyone who attacks their father or mother is to be put to death. Very harsh Mosaic laws. Mosaic laws were very harsh. Anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death, whether the victim has been sold or still in the kidnapper's possession. That was a huge problem back in the day because people would just kidnap somebody that was weaker and sell them for money. Anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. Excuse me. An owner who hits a male or female slave in the eye and destroys it must let the slave go free to compensate for the eye. That was also true about the tooth. If the tooth came out, he had to let the slave go. And which was, according to the time, when people were so free to mistreat them. Well, the whole history is full of mistreatments of slaves. That was kind of revolutionary. It brought a little level of justice for the slaves. If the witness proves to be a liar, giving false testimony against a fellow Israelite, then do to the false witness as that witness intended to do to the other party. You must purge the evil from among you. The rest of the people will hear of this and be afraid. And never again will such an evil thing be done among you. Show no pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot.
Well,
So,
can I bother
yes.
you for a second?
Sure.
Because all this is part of the Israel tradition, and how much of that is living amongst the society in Israel now? How much do they pretend to this?
Not much at all. Even
What was the justification to set it aside? I mean, I don't.
because 99% of it is against the international laws, so the human rights, so they cannot do eye for an eye. And That's not stopping some countries like Iran doing an eye for an eye, things like that. But Israel is a signatory to that human rights treaty internationally. So, but even before that, this hasn't been done for centuries.
Thank you.
So, you have heard, Jesus said, you have heard that it was said, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you, turn the other cheek. And if anyone wants to sue you, take your shirt and hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Do you know what that means, the last part, going 1 mile or 2 miles? Roman Empire at the time, it was the right of every Roman citizen when they were in an occupied land, they could use the people that lived in that occupied land as mules, but they couldn't force them to carry something more than 1 mile. So Jesus told the Israelis, the Jews, if they force you to go 1 mile, give them 2 miles. So, yeah, so the Roman soldiers, anytime they would get tired or what have you, they would just grab somebody local and say, here, carry this for me for 1 mile, Roman mile. So Baha'u'llah, the essence of all that we have revealed for thee is justice. Is for man to free himself. This is very interesting and novel, revolutionary definitions of justice just in the Baha'i faith. You won't see this before the Baha'i revelation. The essence of all that we have revealed for thee is justice, is for man to free himself from idle fancy and imitation. So, a huge part of achieving justice is freeing yourself first from idle fancies and imitation. When you read it fast, it sounds poetic, but it is not. It really is full of meanings. Discern with the eye of oneness his glorious handiwork and look into all things with a searching eye. The original Arabic, it says with a sharp eye, but its translation is beautiful, searching eye. In the hidden words, Baha'u'llah says, O son of spirit, the best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. Turn not away therefrom, if thou desirest me, and neglect it not, that I may confide in thee. By its aid thou shalt see with thine own eyes and not through the eyes of others. So do away with imitations, idle fancies and imitations, and then you will see by the aid of justice with your own eyes. And shall know of thine own knowledge, and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor. Ponder this in thy heart, how it behoveth thee to be. Verily justice is my gift to thee, and the sign of my loving kindness. Said it then, before thine eyes. So why is he saying know of thine own knowledge and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor? Because at the time, and even now, a lot of people look up to their clergies. They in the Shiite culture, they call it the center of imitation. Marja Taqlid said, so whatever the Ayatollah or the Mullah issued, they would follow it blindly, even if it wasn't just. So justice is my gift, God's gift to us. In the words of paradise, Baha'u'llah continues saying, O ye the embodiments of justice and equity, and the manifestation of brightness and of heavenly bounties. People, for the most part, delight in superstitions They regard a single drop of the sea of delusion as preferable to an ocean of certitude. Very profound, very meaningful. So, the word justice and equity show up a lot in the Baha'i writings, because justice is more of a personal thing. You have to have a just heart. But equitable is something that is more enforced on a larger scale. So the house of justice that we say, it's interchangeable. The word justice is interchangeable with equitable. You can also call it the house of equity, because the original word for equity is adl. House of justice is Beitul Adl, so it could be house of equity. But it's from the beginning it was called house of justice, so it is stuck. So that's house of justice is what is equitable, what they determine. By holding fast onto names, they deprive themselves of the inner reality, and by clinging to vain imaginings, they are kept back from the dayspring of heavenly signs. God grant you may be graciously aided under all conditions to shatter the idols of superstition and to tear away the veils of imaginations of men. Again, superstitions, idol fancies, as long as they are not torn down, justice and equity is not possible. Names. By holding fast onto names, they deprive themselves of the inner reality. That is a huge application of the word names. Names could be anything. Names could be somebody that claims to be an atheist and doesn't want to follow religions, so they start applying philosophers' codes. And nothing wrong with that. But as you see, the philosopher's code does not necessarily mean what they really meant, as we saw earlier with Aristotle. So what the philosopher thinks is justice just for the free people is not necessarily justice in the eyes of God. Definitely not just from the eye of the slave. So names could be also the idle fancies and imaginings that human beings currently have towards anybody with a title, such as Dr. So-and-so, or a socioeconomic status. When somebody has millions, you automatically see there is an automatic reverence towards that person. And in the faith, we've had quite a few bad examples of both. Now, that's not to say money is not bad, titles are not bad, love of money is bad, and love of titles is bad. Somebody that wants a title, so people bow down before them.
Rezvon,
Yes.
At the time, were they referring to superstitions like some of the Roman traditions, or they just, or some of the...
Well, I know at the time of Baha'u'llah there were many superstitions. But superstitions always existed. Things that don't necessarily now with our mind, they don't make sense, whether scientific or just what have you. But like number 13, where did that come from? Well, we kind of know where it came from, but it doesn't make sense. It's just a number.
So they just carried it on and on.
Right.
Yeah.
Or when in Iran somebody sneezes, everybody stops doing what they're doing for 10 or 15 minutes. They delay things. It's just somebody's nose tickled. Yes.
Right now, when I see names in that, I see what's going on in the United States with trying to keep people from Muslim backgrounds.
Sure.
The prejudice against blacks and so forth. I see nations and religions as names right now, because if you are associated with any of that, you have high degree of prejudice against you, and people are not doing their due diligence to find out about this.
Thank you.
And they just take other people's word for it. So that's...
Absolutely. Very true. So Don't hold fast to names, according to Baha'u'llah. Fear of God has ever been a sure defense and a safe stronghold for all the peoples of the world. It is the chief cause of the protection of mankind and the supreme instrument for its preservation. Indeed, there existeth in man a faculty which deterreth him from and guardeth him against whatever is unworthy and unseemly, and which is known as his sense of shame. So it's interesting, Baha'u'llah equates shame to intellect, vision, hearing, all faculties. So shame, and this, however, is confined to but a few. All have not possessed and do not possess it. Perfect example, sociopaths. They don't have that conscious. Religion is verily the chief instrument for the establishment of order in the world and of tranquility amongst its people. The weakening of the pillars of religion has strengthened the foolish and emboldened them and made them more arrogant. Yeah. Verily I say, the greater the decline of religion, the more grievous and waywardness of the ungodly. Baha'u'llah is not talking about what people practice. Baha'u'llah is talking about the origin of religion that was revealed. This cannot but lead in the end to chaos. We see that all the time, and confusion. If thine eyes be turned towards justice, choose thou for thy neighbor that which thou choosest for thyself. Above all else, the greatest gift and the most wondrous blessing has ever been and will continue to be wisdom. It is man's unfailing protector. It aideth him and strengthened him. Wisdom is God's emissary and the revealer of his name, the Omniscient. So that is something from God for us. That's what separates human being from the rest, exactly, from the animal kingdom. Krishna said, some come to the spiritual life because of suffering, some in order to understand life, some come through a desire to achieve life's purpose, and some come who are men and women of wisdom, unwavering in devotion, always united with me. The man or woman of wisdom surpasses all the others. Very similar to a saying of Imam Ali in Shiite tradition. So again, justice, equity, sense of shame, wisdom, there's just not one factor that somebody can sit in a philosophy class and talk about. There are many conditions attached. Through it, the loftiness of man's station is made manifest and evident. It is all-knowing and the foremost teacher in the school of existence. It is the guide and is invested with high distinction. Thanks to its educating influence, earthly beings have become imbued with a gem-like spirit, which outshineth the heavens. This was continuing this wisdom part. In the city of justice, it is the unrivaled speaker who, in the year 9, Baha'u'llah, the unrivaled speaker is Baha'u'llah in the year 9 of the Badi years, illumine the world with the joyful tidings of this revelation, and it was this peerless source of wisdom that at the beginning of the foundation of the world ascended the stair of inner meaning, and when enthroned upon the pulpit of utterance through the operation of the divine will, proclaimed two words. I'll go back to that one in a second. The first heralded the promise of reward, and the second voiced the ominous warning of punishment. The promise gave rise to hope, and the warning begat fear, hope and fear. reward and punishment. Thus, the basis of world order has been firmly established upon these twin pillars. So, fear and hope, reward and punishment. So, this is from Krishna. All the scriptures lead to me. I am their author and their wisdom. When they see the variety of creation rooted in the unity and growing out of it, they attain fulfillment in Brahman, God. So wisdom again pops up when they see the variety of creation rooted in that unity and growing out of it. So Baha'u'llah said two words was uttered. Once God utters something, that's it. It's gonna happen. First, the promise of reward. Second, the promise of punishment. The light of men is justice. Quench it not with the contrary winds of oppression and tyranny. The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. Sounds familiar. So God has always said this for ages. The ocean.
Something that's really interesting is the light of man. He's not talking in singular.
Right, light of men is justice for all men. He doesn't say free men. He doesn't say slave, like Aristotle said, free men.
He's also saying it's not upon an individual to take justice upon himself. Correct. Society.
So the purpose of justice is the appearance of the unity among men. That's why we have to have justice. Otherwise, unity is not reachable. So it's interesting, Baha'u'llah is talking about this in the Words of Paradise, and all of a sudden he has a vision. And he says, strange and astonishing things exist in the earth, but they are hidden from the minds and the understanding of men. These things are capable of changing the whole atmosphere of the earth, and their contamination would prove lethal. Great God, we have observed an amazing thing. Lightning or a force similar to it is controlled by an operator and moveth at his command. Now, Shoghi Effendi confirms this to be atomic bombs and atomic poisoning back in the day when they asked him. So this happens very rarely in the writings of Baha'u'llah, that he's talking about certain thing and all of a sudden he has a vision. Why would this happen at this moment? Because there is no justice. The old world there is full of injustice, is built on injustice. And we see it currently, even now. Systemically, yes. So for Baha'u'llah to see that, something has to happen to collapse the old world order. Yes, Nancy.
I don't want to bring politics into it, but I just have a question about your system. How could it be in a just society that a president has the power to assign a Superior Court judge when in fact that judge will be judging over whether there was criminal activity? Isn't there something wrong with the system there, that the person who is about to be judged or investigated is the one that has the power to buy a judge?
Yeah, these are very political and...
Yeah, I don't want to get into politics, but is that a systemic problem?
I was just going to say, they were just talking about that on the show I was watching this morning, and they were talking about one of the things that was proposed supported by the Republican Party is why Hillary Clinton couldn't be a president or considered for presidency is because she was under investigation,
Here we go again.
i.e. now. So there is a movement underway to try to get this vote, I don't know if it involves this man or another person down the line, but to delay that based on the premise that was put forth earlier.
Yeah.
So, to be continued.
Yeah, I see. I don't watch the TV, so I'm Canadian, I don't vote, so, I don't watch any of that stuff on there, but it just seems like there's something systemically wrong with the system that would allow that to happen.
Exactly.
And the system is built, consists of us, human beings, members of society, and if 99% of members of the society haven't let go of their idle fancies and vain imaginings,
Then it's not going to...
and justice is for sale.
Right.
If you are somebody with fame, power, and money, you can get away with murder. If you hire expensive enough attorneys, justice is for sale. So it is not this justice that's prevalent. So to be on a Supreme Court, a justice on a Supreme Court really doesn't mean a whole lot to me as an individual when I'm looking at the revelations from God.
So we're not there yet.
They're very...
There would have been no reason for Bahai to come in any form of government
If it
to
was
establish justice in the world and therefore unity. They don't have the tools, they don't have the ways and means to do it. Not based on
And there is no desire for it either. There is no desire for unity because huge amounts of money is involved in this unity. Yes.
It's a perfect example of what not should happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
These-
And it can't be that we're naive. It seems to me it's the will. It's our will to either fix this problem or not.
Exactly, and that's why the will depends on how enlightened and how godly people are. And as long as the hearts haven't changed, the will is not going to be there. Yes.
We're going back some, not taking what other people say. It's upon you
Yes.
to be informed.
Yes.
And you don't use whoever.
Your neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's for you to be informed.
Standards.
So that's the issue.
So now, Baha'u'llah continued by saying, "Thou has mentioned Hussein." It took me a while to figure out which Hussein he's talking about. This is actually Hussein Ashji. This building that has been.
We just wondered what that was.
Yeah.
Just parked in front of the sign.
The great-great-grandfather of Dr. Ashji, Mr. Ashji is here.
Okay.
So because he made an error, or love had blinded him, and he heard some covenant breakers are going to assassinate Baha'u'llah. Unfortunately, in a moment of despair, he made a mistake. He killed those few covenant breakers. He took the law and justice into his own hands, which brought great sadness to Baha'u'llah. But look at Baha'u'llah, because to this day I still see some supposed Baha'i scholars condemn Hussein Ashji, but they are very wrong. Baha'u'llah says, "Thou hast mentioned Hussein. We have attired his temple with the robe of forgiveness." God forgives him. There shouldn't be any more discussion. If these scholars read this, they really need to detract and take those things out of internet and their books. "And adorned his head with the crown of pardon. It beseemeth him to pride himself among all men upon this resplendent, this radiant, and manifest bounty. Say, be not despondent. After the revelation of this blessed verse, it is as though thou hast been born anew from thy mother's womb."
What is this he was referring to?
He's forgiving Hussein Ashji for the killing of those Azalis, those covenant breakers. So,
Where is this from?
this is in that Words of Paradise. The Words of Paradise. And it's a continuation of what he was talking about, justice, and then he has the vision, and after the vision he goes to this one. And then he says, "Say, thou art free from sin and error." He's still talking about Hussein Ashji. Truly, God has purged thee with the living waters of his utterance and his most great prison. in his most great prison. We entreat him. Blessed and exalted is he to graciously confirm thee in extolling him and in magnifying his glory and to strengthen thee through the power of his invisible hosts. Baha'u'llah, we entreat God to deliver the light of equity and the sun of justice from thick clouds of waywardness and cause them to shine forth upon men. No light can compare with the light of justice. The establishment of order in the world and tranquility of the nations depend upon justice. And if thine eyes be turned towards justice, choose thou for thy neighbor that which thou choosest for thyself. Now this is in 8 Ishraq effulgences, the tablets revealed after Kitab-i-Aqdas, after the most holy book in the Bahai. This is from the effulgences, the 8th one. This passage, now written by the pen of glory, is accounted as part of the most holy book. The men of God's house of justice, Baytullah, have been charged with the affairs of the people. They in truth are the trustees of God among his servants and the daysprings of authority in his countries. Yes.
Does this also apply ultimately or in the future to local houses of justices?
No. This is just universal. Local is local affairs. Universal is...
On a local level, don't they also
Yes.
name local
Oh, yeah.
houses of justice?
Right, yes. That's what you mean, yes. O people of God, that which traineth the world is justice. Justice is a trainer. For it is upheld by 2 pillars, reward and punishment. These 2 pillars are the source of life to the world. Inasmuch as for each day there is a new problem, and for every problem an expedient solution, such affairs should be referred to the house of justice, that the members thereof may act accordingly to the needs and requirements of the time and locality. Safa, I think here it comes into play. But it doesn't say locality, I made that up, but at the time, there is a place for each time. So, they that, for the sake of God, arise to serve his cause are the recipients of divine inspiration from the unseen kingdom. It is incumbent upon all to be obedient unto them. All matters of state should be referred to the house of justice. We all know from previous classes and quotes, there will be worldwide persecutions of Baha'is. They will use this quote as saying that they are not apolitical. They want to run the state. But the state Baha'u'llah is envisioning in his revelation is not the same state that people are talking about now. It's a whole different thing. It's basically it's a secular government side by side with the spiritual leadership. So, but Abdul Baha says, this is one of the prayers for the departed. Shouldst thou deal with us with thy justice, we are all naught but sinners, and deserving to be shut out from thee. But shouldst thou uphold mercy, every sinner would be made pure, and every stranger a friend. See how far the progressive revelation has come from the time, back in the time of Moses and Aaron. We had that mercy seat, you remember, on the Ark of Covenant? It was a literal thing. Now we've come to this level where now we know what's but shouldst thou uphold mercy, every sinner would be made pure, and every stranger a friend. So you don't have to go through all those rituals, take a goat or a lamb or something for sacrifice and pay the priest or whatever, and then they sprinkle the blood on the mercy seat. Those are all in the past. Shoghi Effendi, the fundamental principle enunciated by Baha'u'llah is that religious truth is not absolute but relative, that divine revelation is continuous and progressive process, that all the great religions of the world are divine in origin, that their basic principles are in complete harmony. So if religion is not absolute, justice is not absolute either. It evolves.
That,
Yes.
when I became a Bahai, or one of the reasons I became a Bahai 22 years ago was because of the Universal House of Justice. I saw the brilliance in having an established body that will progress and lead the way for humanity,
Yes.
instead of having something fixed in the past.
Exactly.
It was flexible, it was progressive, and I thought, wow.
And it's an elected body. It's not appointed by a
Yeah, that,
clergy, pope, or somebody. That their aims and purposes are one and the same, talking about religions, that their teachings are but the facets of one truth, that their functions are complementary, that they differ only in the non-essential aspects of their doctrines, and that their missions represent successive stages in the spiritual evolution of human society. The spiritual evolution, this God is not interested in physical man kingdoms, only God's kingdom. Abdul Baha, the kingdom of God is founded upon equity and justice. How many times have we heard equity and justice in the faith, but when you step out of the faith, you never hear the word equity. You hear justice, but it is justice for the status quo. And also upon mercy, compassion, and kindness to every living soul. So this is huge. This justice is not just for men, it's for every living soul, for your environment. That you know, human beings are the only species that destroy their own environment.
oh my.
Strive ye then with all your heart to treat compassionately all humankind. Abdul Baha, some people are like bloodthirsty wolves. If they see no punishment forthcoming, they will kill men merely for pleasure and diversion. The canopy of existence rests upon the pole of justice and not of forgiveness. And life of mankind depends on justice and not on forgiveness. Then what Christ meant, Abdul Baha says, by forgiveness and pardon is not that when nations attack you, burn your homes, plunder your goods, assault your wives, children, and relatives, and violate your honor, you should be submissive in the presence of these tyrannical foes and allow them to perform all their cruelties and oppressions. No, the words of Christ refer to the conduct of two individuals towards each other. If one person assaults another, the injured one should forgive him, but the communities must protect the rights of men. So, you remember in the past we talked about how personal sins can be dealt with in this world and the next, but communities' errors or sins have to be paid for here because the members change of the community or the elected body. Every aggressor deprives himself of God's grace. That's huge. Wherever they reside, Baha'is endeavor to uphold the standard of justice, addressing inequities directed towards themselves or towards others, but only through lawful means available to them, eschewing all forms of violent protest. This is from House of Justice. So not just we uphold justice for ourselves, but we also have to uphold justice for others that are being oppressed. This is a very Kitabi Aqdas, most holy book. Tread ye the path of justice and equity, again, justice and equity in all things. Thus biddeth you he who is the dawning place of revelation, would that ye might comprehend. Again in the Kitabi Aqdas, should anyone intentionally destroy a house by fire, him also shall ye burn. This quote you will see posted by the enemies of the faith all over, but they don't show the next verse. Just like the enemies of Islam or Christianity, they usually take something out of context. should anyone deliberately take another's life, him also shall ye put to death. Take ye hold of the precepts of God with all your strength and power, and abandon the ways of the ignorant. So now, the next verse, Paul says, should ye condemn the arsonist and the murderer to life imprisonment, it would be permissible according to the provisions of the book. He verily has power to ordain whatsoever he pleaseth. He gives that option because there are societies that are far more lenient, so maybe they don't want to burn the arsonist. Now, this is just two examples of what an arsonist is capable of doing. Imagine if these were your relatives, God forbid, children, grandparents, what have you. You would want that person to be burned, I guarantee you. My personal feeling is Wallace, with one fire, he killed 87 people. And the second fellow, he set fires because he was a, he was like a,
Pyromaniac.
yeah. He killed 26 people in 11 of the 26 fires. So when you set fire to a building, you have no disregard for children even. So somebody like that doesn't really deserve to live the rest of his life in prison. So, yes, any questions?
I'm going to be defying the ointment on that, because more and more we find that people that are sociopaths, whatever, do these heinous crimes. Why? There's something in their brain that isn't quite right. They had a really horrendous upbringing, and they can't be judged by the same standard is someone who's a perfectly spot on, like a religious zealot that goes and does something like this. So I would like to think, because we do say that science and religion must agree, that we will use the tools available to us as we go on through the years, so that it isn't black and white like that.
That there is a provision for mental disorders in the law, and if they truly apply it, yes, that person will be punished proportionately, not excessively. But I totally agree with you, and there should be some kind of